recording. If you guys get a message, that should be from me. So my name is Kayla Klein. I am the Director of Early Learner South Dakota. Just to give you just a real quick backstory here, Early Learner South Dakota is, and I'm going to ask everyone to mute yourselves, please, until if you have a question, come off mute. That will help indicate to me if you need to ask a question, that type of thing. And so it'll indicate to me whether or not you would like to, and then I'll kind of switch it over to you. Also, please feel free to throw anything into the chat that you need to as well, if you have any questions. So Early Learner South Dakota is the policy arm of SDAEYC, or the South Dakota Association for the Education of Young Children. So we're a program under that umbrella. And these webinars we're putting a series of these together in the next coming months because we're hearing from people that we still want additional education. What's happening with childcare? What are some innovative strategies communities are seeing? What have we done as a state through Early Learner South Dakota? What are some maybe national programs? So some of you probably joined us on the last call where we talked about the new rule changes and increase in funds that South Dakota is going to be getting. Grace Reef actually joined us on that call last time as well. She's joining us again today talking about the employer website. She will be doing that in the second half, but now I'm going to be turning it over to Travis and Janessa. They're going to be talking to us a little bit about CDAs, how they met, and how this is all kind of connected and what communities are doing within that process. So Dr. Janessa Bixel, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Kayla. Hopefully you guys can see my screen all right. I think I need to maybe move one image up. All right, there we go. All right, so I wanted to give just a little bit of a background of the South Dakota Association for the Education of Young Children, otherwise called SDAEYC. We follow the National Association's strategic direction, where our vision is that all children thrive and learn in a society or communities dedicated to ensuring they reach their full potential. So just real quick, we do try to align all of our work that we do, especially regarding training and the work that we do with early childhood educators, with our South Dakota Early Learning Guidelines. And then I just wanted to highlight a few different events that we've been doing. This was the first year last year that we attended the Educators Rising Conference, and that was in part by the collaboration that Travis and I started, and we got Educators Rising on our radar last year. That's the president, Kevin Nelson, and myself, as well as our secretary down there holding the minion. It was really great to be there, and Travis will be talking more about the Educators Rising. We also have attended the Children's Day at the Capitol for many years now, where we go and advocate at the Capitol, and you can see some of the pictures from last year. We ended up expanding it into 2 days last year and are looking at, I think, doing that in the future. And then something that's come about with our work lately in regard to the childcare crisis and kind of what's led us here today and providing more of these opportunities are these early learner summits, or this year it's called the Future Forward Conference. It's in partnership with the Economic Development Professionals Association. So I just wanted to kind of highlight some of that. We've had national speakers such as Nancy Fishman and Joe Fretwell there. We bring together childcare workers, early childhood educators, higher education, policymakers, legislators, and business people at this particular conference. And then we also have a community connection aspect of our work that we do, where we have chapters and we have early learning communities, and we go out into communities and do work and share about the importance of quality early education. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but there's lots of different events that go on around the state. This was just one that happened to be last year in the Black Hills. And then just so you can see the scope of the work that we do as an association, in blue, we've got our kind of regional chapters that we have. We have higher education student groups, and of course our membership. I'm going to swing us over to the green side here is the early learner work that we do. As you can see, there's a whole lot of work going on there with our early learning communities. our business collaborative and our task force, which those two things have really led us to where we are today in supporting with the childcare crisis. We do oversee the TriShare program, which is a program specifically in Rapid City right now. And then professional development, I'm going to pull right into this light colored area because that's the highlight. Last year, some information led us to start some conversations around an early educator apprenticeship program. And we have a lot of work happening with that right now. We're working with Northern State University on an early educator, an adult early childhood educator apprenticeship program. And then we're still working with Midwest Urban Strategies and the Early Childhood Workforce Connector to look at a youth apprenticeship program for high school students going through the CDA program. So with that, and I think I just have a thank you in my my email. My email's there if anybody needs to reach out to me. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Travis. And please feel free to throw some questions in the chat. I'll be happy to try to answer those, or feel free to email me as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Janessa. And it is awesome to be a part of today. When I got asked to come and share a little bit about this work, I always get excited because it's a new audience. It's a new group of people that maybe get to hear about our organization for the very first time. Educators Rising really was started 6 years ago out of this idea that we needed to look at growing our profession. And what I didn't realize, though, is that my background is in elementary education, upper elementary, taught 4th grade, but we were focused on growing K-12 educators. And that really changed over the last really 24 months for us as an organization because we need early childhood educators. We need K-12 educators. We need educators in our in-home daycares and centers. So really, this broad idea of our organization has really changed over the last 6 years for us. We started 6 years ago with really in 2018, we started with 7 chapters and roughly 50 to 60 kids. Today, we have 54 chapters across the state of South Dakota and over 400 members, 400 high school kids interested in the field of education. Now, we don't know what that is, what field area, if that's secondary, elementary, or even early childhood, but we know we have 400 kids that have at least said, hey, I'm interested to learn more about what a career in education looks like. So now it's up to our organization to partner with others to say, here's some opportunities in education. There's early childhood education, there's elementary, there's secondary, there's higher ed. There's a lot of different roles within inside an education sphere that potentially might connect with the right kid. There's a national statistic out there that says almost 60% of teachers live and work within 20 miles of where they grew up. Our future teachers, our future educators in our communities right now, they're there. They're in our schools. There are middle schoolers, there are high schoolers. And so Educators Rising really hopes to provide opportunities for professional development and professional growth for them. So we want to connect them with professionals so that they can grow and learn from them. We want them to be networking opportunities. When we think about why we got into the field of education, early childhood education, it was probably because of a connection, a relationship that we had with somebody that said, hey, you'd be really good at this. You should do this. That relationship, that networking opportunity provides us that time to build that relationship with these high school students to really help them along on their journey and their path forward. We provide leadership development opportunities, and then we want to expose them to the diverse teaching styles and methods that are out there that will support kids' development and growth throughout their time. Again, Educators Rising has only been in our state for around 6 years. We're a career and technical student organization. So if you've heard of FCCLA or FFA or HOSA or Skills USA or FBLA, those are all our counterparts. Those are all our sister brother organizations that have different things happening within inside their organization focused on careers. We are the only one highly focused on education. Educators Rising is not looking to steal from the other organizations. We're looking to connect with our kids that are passionate about education. This is just a little screenshot of our chapters and where they are located. This is important because no matter where you're located in the state, the question you have to ask yourself right now is, does my school have an Educators Rising chapter? If the answer is no, then what can you do to help us get a chapter started there? And we'll talk a little bit about that because it all builds to this idea of providing a pathway forward for our kids. So if you don't see your school here, it's because we haven't been able to get a chapter there. We haven't connected with the superintendent or the teacher leader to find a good connection to say, hey, let's start this here. But being in the community, the relationships you have, you can help us start to bridge that gap. You can say, hey, I was on this webinar with Travis Slate from Educators Rising, and he was talking about the CDA and early childhood. This would be really something good for us to look at as a school. Great, let's have that conversation. Let's come forward with that. So again, 54 chapters, 400 members across the state. And 6 years ago, again, we only had 6 chapters and right around 50 to 60 kids. So we have grown rapidly. And with that comes a lot of different opportunities. Just a little bit ago, Dr. Summer Schultz, who's the superintendent in Brookings now, and Dr. Tanya Rasmussen, they were out at an early learning conference out in DC, and they came back super pumped and excited about some things that the National Head Start programs were offering or going to be getting started. And they said, hey, we know a guy that's got connections to kids. Let's see if we can bring this together. And so they called me up and they said, hey, would Educators Rising want to do something in early childhood? And I said, absolutely. Like, let's see what will happen. Let's look at this. So we jumped on a call together. And I will tell you, it was out of my comfort zone. Again, my background is early elementary, upper elementary. It wasn't early childhood. And so I knew I needed to bring some people to the table to really help us make sure that we were talking the right language, the right structures, and what would that look like? And so Dr. Schultz, Dr. Rasmussen really were the two that came back and said, hey, let's get Educators Rising involved. Let's get our members, let's offer some opportunities, and let's look at that. So we reached out. I first reached out to Southeast Tech and Loretta, their early childhood educator there, and said, hey, Loretta, I know you've got early childhood at STC. Can we connect? Can you tell me more? So we connected and she's like, oh, we need to bring in the ECE group. We need to bring in Sanford Child Services. We need to start having some conversations with some people in the area to see what this could look like. And so again, a bigger group of people got together and we started having this conversation of what could this look like? And what was great about it was that Sanford Child Services had already had a structure in place for adult learning to offer courses and a pathway forward for them. And so we worked with them. They applied for some funds to be able to offer it to all of our schools across the state of South Dakota at no charge, and to allow our kids to get the 120 hours of academic completed in their school year. They would still have to go for their 480 hours of on-the-job training, but when we talk about the CDA, getting that 120 hours completed and the portfolio done was critical and something that we really wanted to focus on for our schools and our chapters. So that's what we did. We partnered with the ECE group. We partnered with Sanford Child Services. What was great there is Sanford Child Services offered the courses, but if we had kids from different regions, different ECE regions in the state, we tried to connect them back to their local ECE community because 60% of teachers live and work within 20 miles of where they grew up. If these kids get their CDA, we want them to know who their people are in their area that they can connect with in the ECE world. So it was important to go back to their communities and stay connected. Even though they were getting the course through Sanford Child Services, if Sanford Child Services wasn't the representative of that group, we wanted to make sure they knew who that group was. So that was super important. DSS and Child Services have been incredible to work with. They have been the ones that have really tried to bring everybody together in a unified front to keep us all moving forward for the right work, building the workforce, but providing a path forward for our high school kids. Educators Rising South Dakota, we just have access to the kids. And so we share that information all in hopes that their schools will get on board. Their members in their chapters will say, hey, I want to do something in early childhood, and they'll start down that road. when we look at that, it's important that I compare the Child Development Associate's certificate to a CNA certificate in the healthcare world. This is the starting point for a teacher. No matter if they're going to stay in early childhood or not, the CDA gives us a grounding foundation, a strong foundation on child development. So even if after they get done with the course and they get done with high school and they maybe even decide that education isn't the best fit for them, it's okay. They've gone through the CDA, the Child Development Associate, and they'll be better parents, better community members, because they'll understand child development, the importance of good, high quality child care in our communities, because they've gone through something. So even worst case scenario, they don't go into early childhood or into education. We've really set kids up for success in the future when we think about the world that we're sending them out into. And so the Child Development Associate for us in South Dakota really has 3 different pathways. We have the pathway number 1, that's a career and technical education course in their high school. So if your high school already offers Human Development 1 and Human Development 2, they already meet the requirements with inside that coursework for the CDA academic side. Now, the only thing they haven't really completed in there is their portfolio. So we work with our schools to understand what they need to make sure that they have in the portfolio so that they can then go on to the next step of sitting for the exam and the observation once they get their 480 hours completed. But if they offer those 2 courses, Human Development 1 and Human Development 2 inside their high school, they already meet the requirements of the CDA. So that would be checkbox number 1. If you saw your school wasn't listed on that list of chapters, I'd be asking them, do you offer Human Development 1 and 2? And if they say yes, boom, you're already in. The CDA is part of that. They don't even have to do anything different. Besides, we want to work with them a little bit to understand the portfolio and make sure that their assignments and tasks are aligning to the portfolio needs. And those are things we can do with them. So that's pathway number 1. Pathway number 2 is the ECE partnership that we have. We can provide access to all in South Dakota. So again, when we think about our opportunities here, we can, so maybe your high school doesn't offer Human Development 1 or 2. Maybe you don't have a family and consumer science teacher that can teach that. That's okay. Your community still can be part of this because they can be in pathway number 2, which is our opportunity with Sanford Child Services. This is a 2-week class. So 2 days a week for 2 hours. They are on a Zoom call with a teacher from Sanford Child Services going through the material. So 2 days a week for the entire school year. The other 3 days a week, we really encourage them to then have that part-time job out into the field in their community. So if that's working with a center, a daycare, working towards their 480 hours in their CDA area, if that's birth to 3 or preschool, depending on which pathway they want to go, then that's where we encourage them to be getting their hours in. So the ECE partnership provides coursework right to the high schools. It's a Zoom call for 90 minutes. I think I said 2 hours. It's 90 minutes for 2 days a week. And that goes the entire school year. Now, what we found with that is we live in a pretty big state geographically in the sense of territory. We have a time zone change. And then every high school does classes different. Some are in block schedules, some are 4-day weeks, some are 8-period days, some are a hybrid of that during the week. And so what we found was that even though we really want kids to either be in person with a highly qualified early childhood educator in pathway number 1, or be on a Zoom call with a highly certified educator in pathway 2, we were still losing opportunities. We were losing kids that maybe would be interested in this, but just didn't have the flexibility in their course schedule, didn't have the flexibility to be on the Zoom calls. And so that's when the National Head Start Academy came in, and Dr. Bergeon with the National Head Start Association really worked hard because we've been in contact since the starting of this. And we said, what can we do with National Head Start? You already have your academy courses for the CDA. How can we get that at no charge for our high school kids? And so we pushed on her, she went out, she found some partners, And for the next 2 years, we have seats at the table to provide pathway number 3. Pathway number 3 now is truly for those situations where just the time, the schedules, all of that just don't line up. This is a self-paced course that a student would get on and go through the CDA requirements. And along the way, they'd be building out their portfolio because their assignments would be built in there. The only downfall in pathway number 3 is that this is pretty independent. There's no interaction. There's no connection with other kids taking it. It's truly just an independent course. No different than what our kids sometimes take in South Dakota with our dual credit. They'll take an online English class or an online history class from our Board of Regents schools. Very similar, but we know the power in conversation. We know the power in connecting with others. And so we use pathway number 3 for those situations where those other 2 pathways just are not fitting a kid. Well, here's another option. And again, what's great about this is all 3 pathways, well, pathway 2 and 3, because we are bringing in outside teachers, 100% free to your school district. As long as we have seats available, we can provide it, which is incredible to think about, that we can give access to every kid. We don't have any barriers to that. Pathway number 1, that's the live teacher. You may just have a barrier because of the size of school you're at, or you haven't been able to hire a fax teacher. Some of those barriers sit in, but 2 and 3, open to everybody. So currently, again, as I said, there's no expenses incurred by our students or South Dakota school districts. Superintendents love to hear that. They love to bring programs that will impact kids, but also not going to cost them money to get started or bring. The partnerships cover the costs, including the provision, the necessary materials. The only thing in pathway number 3 is potentially some of the manuals. Those aren't provided in there. And so we do have to look at some options there. But in pathway number 2 with Sanford Child Services and the ECE group, they've all rallied together and all the materials in there are provided. And really, the idea here is to support our communities. How can we help build the workforce with our kids? Our future early childhood educators are sitting in our communities. I guarantee you, if we can get them plugged into a center or a daycare, and they get to really see the learning and the growth opportunities of kids, we've got a better chance of them saying, this is a career option I want. This is the profession I want to be in. Now, as you go out into your communities, if you have questions or you get into a meeting and there's questions coming up, don't hesitate. Use my name. Here's my state director email. Send me an email. If you need help with anything, if you need me to jump on a call, I gladly do that and visit more with you about it. But I think it's important for all of our communities to understand that Educators Rising South Dakota is really here to support you in our school districts, and to provide opportunities for our kids that are interested in any sort of pathway in education. And today we're focused on early childhood. Let's connect with those kids. Let's do something big for those kids to show them that our communities need them. Because again, as I stated earlier, 60% of teachers live and work within 20 miles of where they grew up. For our small rural communities to continue to thrive, we need high quality centers, daycares, opportunities for families. Well, we need high quality educators in those centers and facilities to support kids as well. So again, my name's Travis Slape. I'm the state director for Educators Rising, and excited to be in this conversation as we look to say what's next for early childhood. What can we do to support the profession?
All right, I cut into some of Travis's time, and Janessa and Travis did an excellent job sticking to the time that I gave him, which one of the things as I'm thinking is we might extend this to an hour and a half moving forward, because there's just so much great information. But I wanted to open it up to folks. Does anyone have any questions for Travis and Janessa before we move on to our next portion? I'm looking for people coming off mute.
Kayla, I'd like to just add something real
Sure.
quick. I attended the Professional Learning Institute just at the end of June. And that's a NACE conference, and had the opportunity to sit in on a reimagining the CDA session with Dr. Calvin Moore, who's the CEO of the Council for Professional Recognition. and they are doing a lot of things right now, looking at trying to better support students, like with support coaches, electronic portfolios, having chatbots to be able to answer some basic questions, application enhancements, things like that. There was a whole packet that I received. So there, we should be seeing some positive changes coming in the future for the CDA. And then I did want to just throw out there that on the Early Childhood Connections website, which is one of the state's regional offices, there is, and I'm going to share my screen real quick because it's much easier to just share. If you go to their providers and CDA information, about halfway down, there is a portfolio support page that has some short videos that can help people with the portfolio. So I was thinking your pathway number 3 there, Travis, might be something very helpful for students in putting together that portfolio. So that is out there and available for people to use free of charge.
And we can get you connected to Travis. If Travis and Janessa are okay with it, on a follow-up email, I can send you out their contact information, or Travis and Janessa, if you want to add your contact information into the chat. I know you had it on the screen, but please feel free to put it in the chat for anyone who would like to contact you. We did have a question about if there is a slide deck about the CDA information and pathway options. Of course, Janessa just shared that with you. Janessa, I would encourage you to put the link you just shared in the chat as well. So Nora, thank you for the question, but Travis can get me some of that follow-up information, or please, anyone feel free to contact one of those individuals directly as well. So we are moving right along. We have perfect timing here. So we talked about the CDA program, how communities can kind of get involved, how school districts are getting involved, and how we can build up the workforce and interest in this field altogether, because that's what it's going to take, right? Support. So the concept of these webinar series are to essentially give you 2 pieces of education within your 1-hour lunch meeting, if you will. So we're going to shift gears a bit, and we're going to talk more on the employer side of things. And with that, Grace Reef has been an amazing national ally of Early Learner South Dakota and SDAYC for many years now. She works with the Committee of Economic Development, and she has helped us create this website. So I figured who better to share it than Grace. So Grace, go ahead and take it away.
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining today. I just want to say to Travis, I'm a super big fan of the CDA. It really gives, particularly kids in high school, students in high school, the why, right? All kinds of foundational support about early childhood, but the why is what makes it real for kids, so students. So I think that's really great. And with that, I'm going to go to share my screen. Let's see. Here we go. Can everybody see my screen? Should say South Dakota Employer Childcare Toolkit.
Yep, looks good, Grace.
Great. Okay. So the Committee for Economic Development, or CED, has worked with Kayla to develop a resource, and you can use this resource. This is what I like about it. Kind of with a different lens. You can be an employer and better understand what options do you have to expand childcare for employees. You can use it as an advocate or policy person in better understanding what the options are and reaching out to employers. You can use it as an economic development staff person to better understand what kind of conversations could we be holding with employers. I'm going to go through it a little bit, but just high level. I do a lot of work with employers. And when I first began talking to them about childcare, most jump right to, oh, on-site, I can't do it. It's too expensive. Then there's liability. Really, there are a menu of things employers can do, from low cost, no cost, to higher cost. Obviously, on-site care is at a higher cost. But there are other things as well. So starting the conversation with really there's a menu out there. We can all lean in a little bit and expand options for employees and others in the community. So that's what this toolkit is about. It basically, I'm just going to scan down it, goes through family-friendly policies. Most families I talk to, it's hard to balance work and family. It's tough. But what's the connection if you're a company to boost your KPIs by expanding access to affordable quality childcare? These are things that the toolkit covers. It begins with some basic South Dakota statistics. I want to say I work across states, and South Dakota has more working moms than just about every other state. So moms are working. The question is, where are the kids? Who's caring for them? And what's the connection? Those early years where the brain is developing the fastest, there is a connection between what's going on in those early years, setting the foundation for the future social, emotional, physical, cognitive development of kids and their kindergarten school readiness. So, my cursor was stuck a little bit, but I want to go through some of the aspects so you can see. Getting started is just a little intro about, hey, where would I start anyway? If you're an employer or you're talking with an employer, the first thing to do really is to know your employees. If you're a company and you have 10 employees, you probably know them pretty well. But if you have 20, 30, 40, 50 employees or more, not so much. You might know a handful pretty well, but there might be other managers who are more familiar with the day-to-day of their employees. So you can click here. It's an employee survey. It's in Word. It is some basic questions to better understand what are the childcare needs of your employees. Ages of the kids, maybe their current settings or some of their current challenges. It is in Word, so any employer can edit it freely to tailor it. And so that was intentional. But really, before an employer starts to think, okay, there may be 10 different things I can do, don't go in a back room alone and say, well, we can afford this. First, find out what is it that your employees need? What is it that they struggle with? Because responses to the survey can help you evaluate, some of the options. You might want to also have, a meeting or a focus group, but I think it starts with a survey. Family-friendly policies. In this option, we go through just some of the basics about job recruitment and retention, by expanding, access to childcare. It's a cultural thing. Employees are more loyal to their employees. That means that they're likely more productive. That means that absenteeism is lower. That means profitability is higher. These are all good things for companies. Childcare Solutions for Employers Toolkit is a document that Kayla put together. And with Sioux Falls Childcare Collaborative, we took some data, just high level. Childcare Solutions for Employers is some suggestions, but also some spotlights, just for some examples. We put in a calculator. What?
I do want to say full credit will go to the Sioux Falls Child Care Collaborative for that one. Early Learner South Dakota has put together its own childcare solutions, but I just want to make sure that one goes fully to Sioux Falls.
Oh, my bad on that.
No, you're good.
Turnover calculator. You can click on this. You can put in your own information from a company and just see, turnover is not free. When you have job churn and somebody leaves, you've got to advertise, you've got to interview, you've got to make a selection, you've got the wait time before somebody starts. All of that is a cost to a company, in addition to people that might have to double up to cover for, an employee who's absent. Menu of options. These are just different things that are family friendly that employers can think about. An employee assistance program, that's not childcare. but that is workforce well-being. Childcare may not be the only challenge for an employee, someone who's juggling work and family. So under each of these options, there's learn more here, and that's a link to additional information. Flexible spending accounts, that's healthcare, dependent care assistance plans. You might also have heard about them as DCAP. You can put aside, an employee can put aside $5,000 tax-free, and that money can be used to reimburse for childcare. This tax savings for an employer, because when the employee puts aside part of their salary tax-free, employers don't have to pay, FICA or FUTA on that. So there's pre-tax savings. I did put some information on working remotely, because what we're seeing now since COVID is there's basically been a tripling of those who are working, in some manner, either hybrid or fully remote. So there's some more information on that. Predictable scheduling. This is one when I talk to employers and I ask them, do your employees have advance notice? And they, mostly nod. Oh, sure. Yeah. And do I say, so most of them do or all of them do? And they, will say most. And that is good. But most doesn't necessarily mean all. So to the extent possible, if employers can look at their scheduling and to the extent that it's practical, try and figure out if they can give 2 weeks notice to employees about what their schedule is going to be, it makes a difference, because it's chaotic for parents who are looking to make childcare arrangements if they don't know their schedule, 2 weeks in advance. And in some jobs, you're on call. You might not be able to do that, and that's fine. But to the most practical way possible to have that advance notice, it really goes a long way to help families. And then flex time. Some jobs you can have flex time with, some you can't, but parents appreciate flex time where it's possible. So these South Dakota Employer Childcare Champions comes from Kayla's document. These are just spotlights of some of the companies who are doing something to expand access to childcare. So we highlighted them. We actually have a page, South Dakota Employer Solutions. And this is just a link to the document. These are some, just high level, click here, learn more. But what we're really hopeful for is to build this page so that there are many, many examples of employers throughout the state who have figured out some way to make accessing childcare easier. It doesn't have to all look the same. There's not really a right or wrong way. If employers are doing something, share your story with Kayla, because this is the beginning, but the intent of this page is really to grow it. Let's see. On the additional resources, this is just kind of a summary page. I know for me, I like a cheat sheet. Give me the bottom line resources that I can check out. So that's all that is just a summary of resources. So childcare options. This also comes from experience in working across states. When I survey employers, a lot of them have not heard of the federal childcare tax credit. And so this page is, look, there are tax benefits, they're in place. You can offer on-site care, you can contract out for care, like licensed or regulated care in the community. You can get a tax credit for it, up to $150,000 a year, 25% of expenses. There's a learn more here, which is a one-pager. For me, that's one page front and back, but it's a brief document that explains how does this work. And employers can get a 10% credit if they contract with childcare resource and referral types of organizations that help families find childcare. And in South Dakota, there's a childcare helpline that you can also get help. But it's important to really raise visibility. Like there's a tax credit, but it's not a magnet. Employers have to know about it. And so this page is about what's available for employers in the federal tax credit. There's another page where we go over more employee-based options, like the DCAPs that I explained before. That's an employee benefit. You can set aside the $5,000. There's a federal child and dependent care tax credit. That's available to parents. It doesn't go through employers. But, every employer sends out that, W-2 by the end of January every year. You could slip right in that envelope. Hey, did you pay for childcare this year? Be sure, you take this federal tax credit, this child and dependent care tax credit. Just a couple sentences might be a good reminder for parents that there's a federal credit available. And this is a one-pager on the employer credit I just showed you previously. And this is more information on employee type of tax credits. Let's see. Childcare subsidies for low-wage employees. This is another thing. Kayla and I did a bunch of surveys across South Dakota. And what we found in those surveys was more than half of the parents actually hadn't heard about the subsidy program. So making sure that employers let employees know that there is a state program that can help make childcare more affordable. So Learn More here is just a link to the State Department of Social Services webpage. But people can't use the credit if they don't know about it. So we want everyone leaning in saying there is, parents can't use the subsidy if they don't know about it. So everybody leaning in, helping employees know what's available for them can really go a long way. Childcare quality. South Dakota has started a pilot. It's a quality rating system that will grow in future years, but basically it's designed to measure the quality in programs, and it's called continuous quality improvement because like most of us, we're never a done product. We get better every day. And that's the same thing with childcare programs, and they get support along the way. And additional resources, that's just a list. HR, let's talk about HR. HR is often the focal point, for an employer. And so there are some guides here. There are some booklets. The idea is if HR has this information, put it in the lunchroom. Put something up on the bulletin board next to the OSHA, posters. Download the information and, make it available. Maybe an internal newsletter. But there is help. Parents just need to know kind of where to go. Let's see. Finding childcare. I don't know of a parent who would tell you when they're looking for childcare that it's not stressful. It is. And so these are just some hints for employers, quick wins, either low cost or no cost, really. Letting your employees know about the helpline. That doesn't cost anything. Giving them a link for online search. It's already out there. It doesn't cost anything. Posting signs and flyers. Doesn't cost anything. Maybe a little bit of toner if you print them out, but it's not super, high cost. Often parents have special challenges. They have a child with special needs, or maybe they do shift work and they need early morning care or care into the evening. So these are things that the tip line can help with. There's just help out there. For new hires, many of the larger companies and even some of the smaller ones have a new hire packet. Slip a flyer about, finding childcare into the new hire packet. Again, a low cost way to help employees access childcare. And last, and then I'm glad to answer any questions. Our first thing is start with a survey. know your employees, know what they need. There are different things you can help with, but understanding what they need first is good. Post and distribute to parents. This is already pre-prepared information that's available. Tax benefits, download the one-pagers. Let parents know what's available. The employer tax incentive one-pager is really for HR or CFOs or CEOs, so they've got big picture. What are these tax credits? What could I do? And they can begin to think if it's something that will help them. We like the Sioux Falls report and the solutions guide just because they're real good examples of what employers are already doing out there. And last, this is a really quick video. I think it's maybe a minute and a half. It's not an endorsement of the base company that put this together, but it's basically what are the benefits to an employer? And then what are the benefits to an employee of a DCAP, dependent care assistance plan? And so this really shows you. And really it, can save employees lots of money, and it can save employers lots of money. And it's a little YouTube video. So I invite you to check it out. So with that, I'm glad to answer any questions, but we really did look at it as a tool for employers and also a tool for others in the community to have a discussion with employers. Because there's a lot of good information in here, and there's no, one way that's best. There's a menu of options and lots to consider. So glad to answer any questions.
You are all welcome to come off mute and ask a question, or put it in the chat. Not seeing anything in the chat. And just as a note, for those of you who may not be aware, this year, Early Learner South Dakota is partnering with Economic Development Professionals Association, and we are putting our 2 fall conferences together. And I am going to pop the link to that in the chat for you. Registration is on there. We are still looking for sponsorships. What's really exciting about this is it will be fully focused on economic development, childcare combinations during the main pieces of the main keynotes on October the 3rd. We're going to be, for those of you who know, we do have a statewide childcare task force that's being led by Senator Reed. He will be giving updates about that, talking about potential legislation. We are going to be bringing in an economist, as well as Linda Smith, who will be talking about the connection between childcare, economic growth and stability, and then some trends nationally, as well as statewide that we can work on together. So I'd really encourage you, it is open to anybody if you're interested in attending that. There are going to be some breakout sessions too, some that are more specific to economic development and some that are more specific to early childhood education that you guys can go to, but I would highly encourage registering for that event. We still, you guys have my speakers. I can't say thank you enough for keeping to, I cannot believe we got that into 1 hour, even under an hour, but I want to just take one more minute to see if anyone else has any questions while we have these experts on the call. Okay, and then I'm going to be talking a little bit about some other topics that have been brought up that people would like to hear about, and some of our webinar series will focus on. So a couple of them were hit on. Grace mentioned the QRIS. Lots of people are excited and interested about that. So we do have that on the docket. We talked about the GOED grants. We have been reaching out to some of the communities who did have GOED planning and implementation grants. So we're going to be talking about those as well. And again, I'm hoping to send out a post survey to you all. My thoughts are, if you have any other topics that you would like to discuss, you'd like to know more about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at any point in time. What we're trying to do here is just share as much of the wonderful things that people are doing around the state with you all, get you more information, continue to share ideas and help you all find solutions in your communities and within your organizations. And we really hope this webinar series is a way to help you all do that. Any other comments, or if you have some ideas of what items you'd like to hear more about, please feel free to throw those in the chat before you leave as well. And Travis, I think, did you put something in did you want to mention that? You put something in the chat?
Yeah, I just put some of the work that Dr. Bixel and Northern State are doing right now around adult apprenticeships. Once that gets launched and kind of established, the hope is then to kind of replicate that into the youth. So again, there could potentially be some reimbursement funds of up to 50% of an individual's wage if they're part of the apprenticeship. So for example, you get a high school kid, they're part of the CDA course in their high school, they're working for you, you're going to pay them $16 an hour, you'd be reimbursed $8 of the 16. So really you're only paying $8 and you're paying them a decent wage. That there's still more information coming on that team is still working together on the adult side. Once the adult is in place, then we can replicate it pretty seamlessly with the youth. Very similar to what we're doing with our teacher apprenticeship partnerships with Northern and Dakota State right now, but this would be focused on the CDA and early childhood all together.
Right. And I just want to tag on to that too, Travis, and say that through the connection with the Midwest Urban Strategies, they're applying for a grant and asked us to sign on and support the work. It is utilizing the program that the St. Louis YWCA implemented for youth and pre-apprenticeship programs. A couple of highlights that they're noticing from their program is that A, there's retention happening in early childhood, and B, they are seeing a trend of more early childhood degree seeking people that they haven't seen in a long time, and they're seeing it in part due to this pre-apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship programs that they've got going on. So we're hoping to help that happen in South Dakota as well. Get more teachers here. That's what we want. That's what we need.
And hopefully with that, we can do another webinar when we have a little bit more information about the apprenticeship program. We'll probably bring you all back to talk about that. Let's see, are there any other let's see, anything else from the audience? Okay, I am going to end the recording, but just so you all know, we will have this a